Hello YouTube. We are going to build these nightstands today. These are concealment nightstands, and they have a drawer and they have a door, and there are two of them. I have one over there as well. So I'm going to take a nap and I'll see y'all here in a little bit. Good morning YouTube. What I have here are two slabs. I found these two slabs at an antique mall. This one I think was 15 or 20 bucks. And this one, Jesus, find a hole here, was like 25 bucks. They're both fairly dry and fairly thick. We're looking at 2 inches on that one and a little over 2 inches on this one. So what we're going to do is these are going to become the tops of our two nightstands. We are going to keep the bark because that is what my daughter wants. So the barks, one with a bark, will be cut in half, and that will be the front and the back of the nightstands. This one will be cut and flush, so all the live edge on this one will be gone, but it'll look real pretty in the middle. So normally I would start with a cabinet, but because this is a 24 by 18 inch top, I kind of need something to go off of, and I don't particularly have the wood here at the moment for the legs. I'm going to source some pallet wood for those. So I need to make a trip to my local dealer for my pallets. I stuck a piece of beadboard to the bottom of the live edge, that way I could run it flush against my fence, being very cautious to keep that straight edge flush against the fence. It allowed me to run this right down the middle. Then once I was done with that, I could join it. So we're all through the joiner. Now it's on to the planer. As you can see, there are several different heights in which we have to deal with. Again, I took the tallest board, and we're going to set the depth for that one first, taking small cuts on each one. This over here, it's just a scrap wood project I got to run through, and we'll see how that turns out. Not even sure what I'm going to make of that yet, but we'll figure something out. With the boards being so different in thickness, it took a little while to get them all down to the same size. But you can see the beauty coming through as it goes through the planer. So we got two nightstands to build. You can see I got a line over here to here's 20, and there's two lines here in the center for my blade, and then over to here is 20. All this is going to get cut off, same as all this. This stuff don't matter. Now what we got to do is we got to lay out for the bead locks, and we're going to need 2, 4, 6, 8, 16 of those. It's a lot of holes to drill. Here you can see I've got the bead locks laid out, and I'm drawing clear lines so I know where to drill the holes at. So after laying out for the bead lock, the next reasonable thing is to drill the bead lock. I've already went ahead and drilled them because you guys don't need to see that. If you want to see it, I got a video for that. Check it out up here. Come back, see where we're at. But just a quick little rundown. You drill them holes. Got a floating tenon, about like so. Slides into these grooves. Put them in there. Glue it together. Kind of works like a domino. Now, these joints are pretty good, but the wood kind of contrasts itself. So I think it would look better if they were to be individual boards. So I'm going to put a 1/4 inch round over on each board. There'll be a round over here, 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 and here. So I've already got that in the router. Let's go do that. After putting the round over on, I glued them up in 2 sections. That way I can still run them through the planer. I only have a 13-inch planer, so an 18 by 20 top is not going to fit through. Now, all I'm doing really is just cleaning the glue off of them. Once I got them through the planer, we went ahead and we put them back in the clamps and made a solid top. Now all I have to do is just clean the glue off of 1 seam instead of 4. So my battery went dead, so y'all didn't get to see none of that footage going through the router. But we did end up pretty cool. After I got it all out of the clamp, this is how it turned out. So now what we got to do is we got to cut it down the center, and we got to rip off the edges. So that's what we're going to do next. I decided to go ahead and put a round over all the way around. That way it kind of cleans up the edges a little bit and, you know, doesn't make it so sharp in case you get up in the night and hit your hip on it or something. I think that profile looking pretty good. I don't think she's gonna get much of this bark though. Keeps falling off every time I run it through a different part of the process. I lose more bark. So now we'll start laying it out. Here I'm running them stringers through from the pallet wood video. We're just getting them all cleaned up. So after running them through the planer, we got these here. Now we got to cut them up and make some legs. As you can see here, I'm using a stop block. That way all 4 legs are the same. I got the legs laid out the way I want them now. I think they're going to look good that way. I like this pattern that's on all of them. We put the nice patterns, they'll be the front ones. And put the plain Jane ones there on the back. And because I like the layout as I have it, I went ahead and marked the bottoms to where I want them on my tabletop. That way I remember my pattern. So if you've seen the nightstand video, you've seen me do this before. This is an easy way to get some pretty nice feet on some legs. I have marked the 3 corners on which I'm going to run the router. This way I don't mess up. I have set my fence to the cut depth, and we are going to plunge in and we're going to run to the other one. This Jessem router lift sure does make it easy to get the right depth set. I really enjoy using this thing. One of the things I find most gratifying about working with pallet wood is you can go from something like and create these. I mean, to me, it's just satisfying. So I went ahead and laid out some pallet wood that we're going to use for the sides and the back. Let's turn this into some good wood. I went ahead and cut up what I need for the panels, but it looks like I may have cut too much wood, but we'll use it later on. So here's what I got. I'll show you, and then we're going to run it through the router, and we're going to put the tenons on the end, and what else? Oh yeah, we're going to put a bevel on it, just like we did the top. So here's what I got. These are going to be the side panels. They will look like this. And there's the extra wood that I ran through the planer. But that's alright. I can use 1/2-inch boards anywhere. So Now I have to figure out something to do with that. I'm sure it'll come to me. So instead of putting the dado stack in, I'm going to utilize this round style bit set. And since this is what I'm going to be using to make these panels, I figured why not go ahead and make the mortise with that, or the tenon. This is the tenon. We'll go ahead and make the tenon with this. Now, if you look, not exactly centered, but I wanted to save time and not have to clean up any chip here. So, it still beats the hell out of putting in the dado stack or making multiple cuts, and it leaves a much cleaner cut. So that's what we're going to do for all these. And then we're going to go ahead and put the round over on it. I'm using a jig here to help me run these through. It lets me get a hold of the part a little better, and it's safer. And then we run the round over on all of the parts. That way it gives it a nice, pretty seam in between all the boards. So this, I believe, is where we're going to stop for today. I got the finish on them, and we'll let that dry. Now I don't believe this pallet wood is going to shrink too much, but just for the sake of argument, I went ahead and finished it anyway. And we will get these in the rails and stiles tomorrow. I come back out the next morning and went ahead and started cutting up the rails and stiles. I don't like to cut these up until I'm ready to put them together, just because they get real tight. So I did the tenon first, and then I went ahead and ran the mortise side through. Got our rails and stiles all cut. Got our panels all cut. Got to glue them together. So, I take one of these. Take one of these. I squish some glue in there. Now when you're putting your glue on these, if you see my other videos, you only want to put it on the parts that are going to touch. You don't want to get glue everywhere. You want enough glue, which I do not have enough in here. You want a little bit of squeeze out, but you don't want to have to sand the hell out of it. Now, in the other videos, we didn't glue the panels in. I don't feel like we're going to glue these ones in either. We'll brace them up because I got to put drawer runners in it, so there'll be plenty of strength. Set them down in there. Line it up with the edge. Clean as much of that squeeze out off as you can. Now, while it's wet. Other side. Now I'm only going to put 3 sides together, then I'm going to put my panels in. That way I don't have to work nearly as fast with the glue drying. Gives me a little bit of time. I was planning on using these stringers for the nailer strips on the back, but after I got them cleaned up, man, these things look cool. These are going on the front, so instead of doing nailer strips, we're going to do face frames. Let's cut them up. Alright, so I made some nailer strips. These are 2 inches. I was going to use that pallet wood, but I had some oak that was left over from the changing table that was bowed this long. So I cut it down and I was able to repurpose it for this project. These are those pallet boards. They turned out pretty good. We're going to use them for the face frames. We're going to mount all these with pocket holes. So I got 2 fronts, 2 backs. Now we put them together. I got 2 pieces of 3/8 dowel because I want a 3/8 relief on the front and 3/8 relief on the back. That gets me past this profile on the legs. So we will start putting that together now. So we take these, set these off to the side. We open these up, put the dowels in here like so. Make sure you got it facing the right direction. So, pocket holes go up. And what we'll do is we'll put it all in here. Everything fits nice and snug. We'll throw a clamp on it here in just a second. Let me get a clamp. So we're going to go ahead and pocket hole the top first. So, we got the face done, we got the back done. Then while we were doing that, I pulled the sides out of the clamps and we can go ahead and attach them. I'm going to throw some pocket holes in them and then we'll put them on the same way we did these. Now, we're ready to put the screws in. You see up front here I got 2 blocks. What that does is that allows me to put force on the drill going in. That way it doesn't push away from me. Now, I made them myself. You can buy them online. But these work alright. So, I'm going to go ahead and sink some screws in this. And then we'll flip it over and do the other side. I got clamps holding it together. That way it doesn't run away from me. So we'll go ahead and sink some 2-inch screws in it. This is much easier to do when you don't have to worry about holding it in 2 different directions. It's nice to be able to just push on it. So, that's one Carcass assembled. And this pallet wood, pallet wood, pallet wood, pallet wood, pallet wood, pallet wood. Now, we'll get the drawers and the door and the top and the inside and the slides and so on and so on. But I think that panel's turned out pretty nice. So this is how I'm going to do some simple drawer runners. I clamped my big T-square in place and it's just a piece of 1 5/8 with 2 holes drilled in it, and we're going to screw them down. Drawer runners are installed. Not everything has to be complicated. I think those will most certainly support a drawer. And put a little wax on them. That'll glide like the last ones. So, I guess we got drawer runners in. Need to make some drawers. Remember how I said I was gonna have to figure out something to do with that pallet wood? Yeah, well, I figured it out. I got a bottom I had to put up there. I got a bottom I got to put in here. So I went ahead and milled it up to 1/2 inch. And drop these runners a little bit so that a 1/2 inch would sit right in there and be nice and flush here. And we'll go ahead and put these in. Let's check it out. So I went ahead and put a round over on these ones too. I figure, you know, this shelf might as well match the rest of the nightstand. So we've got 2 shelves done. Let's take a look at those. There's a top shelf. I just used a pole saw to cut out the corners. And there's the bottom. You seen that go in. Same thing over here. Now, onto the drawers. Now I have pulled out these 90-inch pine pallet boards and one of these oak pallet boards. Now I'm going to use this oak pallet board because I like the way that grain flows into each other. Those are going to be the drawer fronts. And the pine, with all its flaws, will get milled down and become the sides and the back. So I'm going to do that and then we'll start assembling these. Got the drawer boxes done. They're just the simple pine pallet boards with some pocket holes and Kreg screws, 1.25 inches, I think. Now we got to put the face fronts on. To do that, we're going to cover up these pocket holes, so you'll be able to see the pocket holes on the back if you take the drawer out. So I got to make these faces match her drawers on her dresser. And those have like kind of squares and a round over and a round over. So we're going to lay that out and put the round over on them. Then we're going to drill the holes for the hardware and get these things glued and screwed. So we're going to do that. I lay this out on the back side. That way I know when I run the router where to stop on the fence. So I got my Kreg jig for my handles. I got my 7 inches laid out. I got it set to 2 inches. You take it, put it right on your line. Throw a clamp on it. And now you're ready to drill your holes. This is not the best way to support something when drilling it. And you've got 2 holes drilled. That should mount up perfectly. Looks pretty good. Do the other one. Now we can move on to putting them on the drawer faces or on the drawer boxes. So I put a couple of blocks behind it. That way, when I push on it, it doesn't move. And I'll show you why we're going to push on it here in a minute. We're going to run a couple of these screws through the holes right into the drawer box. So this is where we are now. That's not going to work. We need to put handles on there. But to put the handles on there, we have to countersink the back side of the drawer. And that's where these screws come in. Because that shows me exactly where I need to countersink. This sequence is wrong. You glue and screw the front to it first. Put your screws through the back to the drawer face, and then you put your hardware on. It's much simpler that way. Starting to look like some nightstands. We got the drawers done. Now, if you haven't seen my videos, I like to cut my drawers exactly the size and then sand them in to fit nice and snug. And so we got that all done. It fits pretty good. But we got to make these doors to hide this interior because the design that she sent me had doors on it. So we're going to try to use the same frame and panel construction that we used on these sides and do it that way. I think we use some smaller slats though than what we got on the sides. So here we go on that. I got the doors put on, used a piano hinge for that. We're not even going to talk about how that went. That went really bad. I suck at hinges. But it opens and closes. Next thing we're going to do is put the handle on and install the magnet. This would have been a lot easier to do if I'd have done it before I put the door on. Keep that in mind when doing your doors. So to mount this hardware, we are going to use this double-sided tape. Put it right here. And we will close the door. And boom. That will let me know exactly where to put my screws at. And once you got it set in place, take your center punch and go in the middle, both top and bottom. And then you can pull your double-sided tape off. And you take your little screws, then you take another piece of double-sided tape, stick it to the door. Right where you're going to want your latch to be. See, that's not right. That's pretty good. Now we take our center punch and we'll punch that hole right there. Now, as you can see, we're not flush. So what we do, take a screwdriver, loosen these up just enough. To pull it forward a little bit. And that's pretty good. So now we got to lay out the drawer slides so that we can route out the 1/2 inch deep groove that they're going to go into. So I'll square them up with a back. That looks pretty good. And then we'll just take a pencil and we'll draw around them. So I set my router on here with a rabbiting bit, and I got it sitting right on the line. I put this right up to the edge of the router. I'm going to put 2 3/4 inch screws in there to hold it in place. And I'll check it for square again. And we'll put the second screw in. And that'll hold that in place so that we can route a line, the outside line, and then we'll move it over and we'll get the inside line, and then we'll be able to just freehand the middle right out of it. So when doing this, you want to take shallow passes. I'll probably make this cut in about 3 passes or so. As you can see, I've got 2 clamps holding this down through the dog holes. This is to keep my workpiece from moving and me having to worry about it. 2 passes did a real nice job. Everything is nice and tight, nice and flush. And I went ahead, since you're not going to see the bottom of the front, I just went ahead and routed up past the corners. That way I didn't have to worry about squaring them up. And I think that will work fantastic. Now we got to do 3 more. Since we lost most of the bark during the process, I went ahead and used a chisel to remove the big parts of it. And then we went ahead and we're going to take the drawers off. That way I can use a wire brush and a drill to get the rest of it off. And then we'll hit it with some 80 grit and some 120 grit to get all the rest of it off and make it look all nice and pretty. This worked pretty well. I'm pretty happy with the way it come out. Now, after this, we'll go ahead and finish it and let it sit overnight, and then we'll get everything installed. Now, I went ahead and finished the drawer fronts, you know, just because you guys want to see it. And then I went ahead and finished the rest of the carcass. Now, I am extremely happy with the way all this pallet would come out. So now that we're finished with that, we got to put the inserts in. I took the plastic off and put the steel on, and they went right in with no problem. Now, I laid this blue felt down on the concealed area. That way it would give it a little bit of padding underneath the black that's going in it over top. The black ain't real thick. Once I got all that glued in, I just used some spray adhesive and then glued it all in. I cut the corners so that it would sit down there nice and flush. I'm going to kind of speed through this next part here a little bit, just, you know, for security issues. It is for my daughter, and I don't want anybody breaking into her room and stealing her stuff. But, you know, it turned out pretty good. There's the pin. We'll cut it off, and it'll go inside a sleeve inside that top, and then it'll be a magnetic lock. Oh, that was quick. So, we'll go ahead and walk you around here so you can check these out. Yeah. So I imagine the part y'all want to see the most is the concealment. Slide it over, hear the click, and pull it out. And it's easy as that. And you slide it back, pull it away, and no open. Now she's already got it filled full of crap, but you know, everything works good. It's real nice. And they look good with a bed that was built for her. And if you remember the relief I put on the drawers, that matches the drawers on the dresser we built. We don't have a video of that. but it does match. So that is my daughter's bedroom suit. Now maybe she'll leave me alone and I can get something else done. So that concludes this episode. And I'm going to get out of my daughter's room so she can take a nap. And we'll see you in the next episode. So you want to see more? Like, subscribe, hit that bell. And we'll see you in the next one. Bye.